Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of The Standard is the Standard, the BehindTheSteelCurtain.com podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. With me, as always, is my co-host Lance Williams. And folks, if you haven't been following the news, my gosh, there's so much to talk about. But let me bring in Lance. Lance, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, man. And unfortunately, after a loss, I feel like Michael Corleone. They pull me out. Once I get out, they pull me back in. And you know who's pulling me back in. Oh, it's that guy. I told you about that guy, listeners, years ago. When a guy autographs a car, I told you what that guy was all about. I told you what he was about. Y'all didn't want to hear it. Y'all liked his Instagram. I told you what that guy was about. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for folks that don't know, he's referring to Antonio Brown, and he has been, well, I can't believe it, but he's taking the news away from Le'Veon Bell's holdout and made it all about himself by not showing up to work on Monday due to his antics on the sideline, which, by the way, I'm not that concerned about. Players go off on the sideline all the time. I don't have a problem with that at all. Not one iota. And then obviously he's going to have to face the music, and he left the stadium early. He didn't leave the field of play early. He left afterwards early to avoid the media. He didn't show up on Monday. Tomlin is disciplining him in some way, shape, or form. That's pretty much where we are right now. But you know what? We're gonna talk about it, Lance. So save it.
Yes, we are.
Save
Yes, we are.
save all those arrows. Keep them in your holster. If those that didn't know, whether you're listening to this in podcast form or whether you're on our YouTube page, if you want to know what our thoughts were on this Kansas City game of Week 2, go back, listen to the post game show. Lance and I were both on that episode, and you'll get to hear all of our thoughts. And it was instant reaction. It was about 45 minutes to an hour after the game concluded. So we're not going to talk a ton about last week's contest unless it has to do with a question or if it has to do with coming up to the Week 3 game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. But we do want to go back, and we'll have a new segment. We're always trying to throw in some new segments to keep the show fresh, and that is Stat of the Week. And that's where we both look at one specific statistic from the game that was and highlight that for whatever reason. So, Lance, I know you have a good one. Why don't you go ahead and tell us your Stat of the Week?
Okay, my Stat of the Week deals with the Steelers defense in the red zone. And I'm bringing up my stat sheet because I want to get the ranking right. Because I think one thing, this defense, it had its issues last year. But one thing it did do well last year was it was a solid red zone defense, and they got solid pressure on the quarterback. Right now, in 2018, opponents have been in the Steelers' red zone 7 times. Of those 7 times, they have converted 6 of those. So teams are 6 of 7 in the red zone, 85.7%. That ranks 28th, one of the worst red zone defensive teams in the National Football League. And if you're going to be a bend not break defense, if you're not going to have elite playmakers on a lot of different levels, you're going to give up some yards, you better zone. So they're not doing that as well. And that's just alarming. I mean, that speaks to a lot of things. That speaks to some of the things that Mike Hilton said in his tweet earlier this week about a lack of communication. It speaks to bad coaching. It speaks to bad execution. It speaks to bad personnel. It just flat out says this defense is shitty. It's just shitty right now. I'd like to give you guys a flowerful or colorful adjective, but the only thing I can come up with is this is shit. And it is a shit show on the defensive side of football.
It is, but it is still a small sample size. So I like how you said right now, because one aspect of defense, like red zone, could improve as the season progresses. It can only take a couple good performances. I'm not saying that it will. I'm not predicting that it will. I'm just saying that it's only 2 weeks. Not good in any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, still a small sample size. Lance, my stat is a little bit simpler and it's more specific to week 2. And I still can't believe this. And I wrote this in my winners and losers column when I put the entire defense on the losers. I didn't actually write every single player. I just wrote the
Should have.
entire defense were losers. And the main statistic that I put down is that Patrick Mahomes threw more touchdowns, 6, than incomplete passes, 5.
Yeah, that's terrible.
This is I just think about it. Like he threw more touchdowns than incomplete passes. Oh my! Like that makes you want to wring someone's neck. It's so frustrating that. But you know what? Kudos to him. Kudos to the Chiefs because they had a really good plan, and it was compounded by a really bad plan on the Pittsburgh side of things. So for me, that was my stat. Patrick Mahomes, 6 touchdowns, 5 incomplete passes. And that leads to 40 plus points being hung up on you at home. There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Let me add to your point, Jeff. There was a throw to Sammy Watkins that he missed when Sammy Watkins had J.J. Watt one-on-one coverage in the slot that he just overthrew. He beat J.J. Watt by at least 7 to 8 yards, and that should have been his 7th touchdown pass. And that shouldn't have been an incompletion. He just flat out missed the throw. That was probably one of the few throws he missed in that game. So it's just to say, what you said, Jeff, the plan was bad. The execution was bad. Everything was bad. They out everything the Steelers in that game.
That's not good. And by the way, it's TJ Watt, not JJ Watt. JJ plays for the Houston Texans.
So yeah, I always get that. And listeners, yes, I'm going to say JJ all year. I didn't say Martavis's name right. It took me a year.
It took you 2 years to not say Martavius.
And also, Patrick Mahomes is not a rookie. This is his second year, second start. He's a new starter. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Lance is new to the podcasting game, folks, so let's give him a little break. I'm joking. He's not new. He should know better by now. Anyways, we're going to continue with this game with one more segment, and that is our heroes and zeros segment, which obviously it is what it is. You're picking heroes, and then you're picking the zeros. Let's just do the heroes first, and then we'll go to zeros. Who's your heroes, Lance? Is it one, more than one? Is there anyone that could be listed as a hero after week 2?
I was originally going to say Juju Smith-Schuster, but I'm going to change. I'm going to go with Jesse James. I thought Jesse James was a highlight on the offensive side of football. I thought he played really well. In fact, I thought both tight ends played really well. And I think the emergence of Jesse James and Vance McDonald playing well on that side of the ball is going to help offset the fact that the Steelers do not have an established third wide receiver as of yet. So Jesse James is my hero of the game. You want me to give you my zero?
No, not yet. I want to do my hero, and then we'll do zeros. So I'll go with Ben Roethlisberger. And that might sound like the gimme, the gimme pick, but not only did he come off of a game in Cleveland where he turned the ball over at a ridiculous rate, and he didn't turn the ball over once. To me, I watched Roethlisberger, and I thought it was a gutsy performance. And it reminded me a lot of that Jacksonville playoff loss last year where things weren't going their way. The defense wasn't playing well, and it was almost like Ben said, you know what? Let's go. Get on my back, and we're going to try to get this thing done. And it didn't pan out, and it normally doesn't pan out when they throw the ball that much, but that doesn't make his performance that less significant, in my opinion. So I think that Ben Roethlisberger had a tremendous football game. He did miss a lot of passes, but it was a gutsy performance in a game where he wasn't getting much help. And so that's why I have Ben Roethlisberger as my hero. All right, Lance, let's go to zeros. What you got? You can't say the whole team or the whole defense.
No. Not at all. But speaking of Ben's game, it's interesting because, his game made me think of, basketball in a sense where they talk about volume shooting in basketball, where they talk about guys putting up prolific numbers but not being very efficient in the game, where, you're shooting it 50 times to score 50 points, not efficient, a la the infamous Kobe Bryant games, volume shooting James Harden, so on and so forth. That's what I thought about Ben Roethlisberger's performance against the Chiefs. I thought it was volume, a lot of volume, not very efficient. And the scary thing about it was, had he been sharp, he could have thrown for possibly 600 yards in that game, because there were quite a few throws that he missed, and he could have had like a 5-touchdown, 600-yard throwing game. So I think there's still room for improvement with him, because his numbers are crazy over the first 2 weeks. And riddle me this, I don't think anybody in Steeler Nation would suggest that he's played crisp football yet. So maybe that's a good sign moving forward, going to Tampa Bay. My 0 is your 0. And you might say it, but he's your guy that you've been kicking in the rump all fall. And ironically, I said kick because it's the punter. He's got to go. Jordan Berry's got to go. And the reason why he's got to go, this defense needs help. How do you help this defense? Field position. I think as astute football fans, as we are, listen to the show, listen to this program, we all realize that the percentages are much more in your favor when teams have to go 80. If teams have to go 80 yards to get touchdowns, odds are in your favor that you're going to stop them. But when teams are getting the ball at the 40 and Keith Butler is your coordinator, 6 touchdowns, baby. 6 touchdowns. Jordan Berry's got to go. I read that Mike Tomlin had some punters in this week, and hopefully they make the switch. I mean, this defense has to play with good field position. They cannot have drives starting 35, 40-yard line. This defense is just not good enough. So my 0 is Jordan Berry.
And speaking of the punters that were brought in, there were 3 punters, and then they brought in a long snapper even, which is surprising. But the fact that it's Wednesday, now this was not an official reported practice because they don't play till Monday. So the first injury report of the week will be coming out on Thursday. We record the show on Wednesday night. The fact that they did not make a move yet tells me that none of those punters that they brought in are going to supplant Jordan Berry. So in my opinion, we're going to have Jordan Berry for at least another week, if not longer. I saw a report that Chris Boswell really likes Berry as a holder and that's really important to him. Well, I look at that and say Chris Boswell's missed every field goal he's attempted and an extra point this year. Why don't we try to mix it up a little bit? But I agree with you. Anyone that's listened to these episodes knows that I'm not a big Jordan Berry fan. It's not that I hate the guy. I gave him the benefit of the doubt the past few seasons, but there comes a point where it's, my gosh, like you said, what gets me is when you watch other punters from other teams really flip the field. You know, the defense makes a stop, and you're thinking, all right, we're going to get the ball around midfield, and then the punter just crushes a 65-yard punt, and you're pinned back in your own zone. You're thinking, why the hell can't we do that? And I know that Jordan Berry had the one punt that was down at the 1, which resulted in a safety, but that one should have been fair caught, and they would have had the ball at like the 15. But nonetheless, I'm going to go with my 0, the big man, Keith Butler. I thought that the defense has, since the last playoff game against Jacksonville, I have not seen the defense this unprepared in my life. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing. And when it looks like you don't know what you're doing, like you can visually see it on the television program, not all 22. You're watching it live and you're saying, these guys are clueless. And they're pointing, they're turning around before the snap. You've got bad substitutions. Guys are running on and off the field. It just reeked of a lack of preparedness. And that falls solely on that's on Butler's shoulders. Now, the plan itself, I don't necessarily hate as much because, Lance, you and I predicted what they were going to do, and they did. They came out in zone. They thought a young quarterback, they'd be able to kind of confuse him, and he was shredding it. And they just never changed from that until late in the game. And then at that point, they have the weapons to beat you man-to-man as well. So this Kansas City offense is good, but the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive plan was awful. It was awful. The execution was awful. Everything about it was horrendous. So that's my loser, Keith Butler. You have anything to add to that, Lance?
I don't disagree. You saw the pictures of the All-22 that I showed you of just how bad they played that one particular play where Kelsey catches I think the skinny post in the red zone for the touchdown. Just how bad it was.
Yeah.
How they had the right personnel on the field. They had enough people, but two guys cover a guy in the flat. They let Kelsey release. Touchdown. I mean, it's just really bad because, and fans, fans hate it when Mike Hilton comes on Twitter and says it was all us. It was communication stuff. So on and so forth. It was partly that. I mean, unfortunately, it was partly that. And that comes to coaching. If the communication is bad on the field, you're not communicating it well to your players. And so communication issues reflect poorly on the coach. And so it was just a bad plan, bad execution, bad communication. It was all three of those things. And they really made it easy on Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely. So I think we can all agree that it's time to kind of put that one behind us. The Steelers are 0-1-1, and that is every bit as bad as it sounds. And let's go to our true and false segment. Those that have listened, this has been something we've done since we came back on the air before the preseason. We're just doing true and false statements. We state whether they're true, whether they're false, and then obviously in the comment section below, whether you're on behindthesteelcurtain.com or whether you're on our YouTube channel, comment. Let us know what you think. Do you disagree with what we said? Did you like what we said? Let us know, and we'll get a little discussion going. So we're going to start off the first thing, and that is the noise, quote unquote noise. We're talking Antonio Brown's actions or lack thereof for not showing up on Monday. We're talking about Le'Veon Bell not being there. The noise is impacting the Steelers' play. Lance, true or false?
False. You know what's impacting the Steelers' play? Keith Butler. That's who's impacted the Steelers' play. Is Keith Butler, Bostic, and Joe Hayden being hurt again. That's having way more impact on the Steelers' play on the field. Also, what's impacting the Steelers, they don't have a third wide receiver yet. And Vance McDonald continues to be hurt on the field, off the field, on the field, off the field. That's what's affecting the Steelers. The answers to all of this always lies within the white lines. It's those 11 guys on the field and those guys coaching them. So I think the noise is not impacting their play on the field. I think it's a nuisance, something that they would rather not deal with. But, if guys miss meetings, that's not a great thing. Guys don't want to talk about that. But if you weren't practicing really that day and getting treatment, it's not much of a big deal that day. It's just more of a perception thing and how it looks. But, Bostic and Vince Williams trying to cover Travis Kelce or TJ Watt trying to cover Sammy Watkins in the slot, that'll affect your play. So it's Butler, it's the coaches, it's the players. That's where the impact is coming from.
The statement was does the noise, and you were right. You said false. Does the noise, is it impacting their play? And I'm gonna say maybe in week 1, but I don't think anymore. I'll say false. But I do think that Le'Veon Bell missing is a lot bigger than a lot of people think, and that even goes to Antonio Brown. Le'Veon Bell not being in the offense, taking attention away, or getting the defense's attention, I should say, taking attention away from Antonio Brown, that's playing a big role in this. You watch how defenses are playing Antonio Brown, and they are really bracketing him. Sometimes they're throwing 3 defenders his way. He's getting frustrated. It's not that they're not trying. He's getting a ton of targets, but it's just they're not hooking up yet. So in a way, the noise is impacting, but I still don't think that the noise itself, I think it's more along the lines of Le'Veon Bell is not there. So I'm going to say false as well. All right, let's go to the next one. Mike Tomlin is now on the hot seat. True or false, Lance?
False. And I say it's false because Steeler coaches aren't ever on the hot seat. When Steeler coaches win Super Bowls and they win a lot of games, and it's time for them to leave, they're politely asked to go. And he will be too. He will be given that courtesy, just like Bill Cowher, where management and he will come to an agreement and they'll just say it's time to go. There's no hot seat for coaches in Pittsburgh. But for coordinators, oh hell yeah. The seat's an inferno. Oh hell yeah. If you were in Keith Butler's seat, oh yeah. Oh yeah, that seat is hot as hell. Pardon the pun.
Well,
Tomlin,
save the Keith
no
Butler
hot
stuff.
seat.
Okay, yeah,
No hot seat.
I agree with you. I think it's false that he's not on the hot seat. As much as the fan base probably wants that to be true, it's just not going to happen. That's not the way the Steelers do business. And so yeah, I'm going to say Mike Tomlin it's false. You brought up Keith Butler, and before we go to the next one, which is about Keith Butler, you wouldn't say Randy Fichtner would be his seat was getting hot, do you? Because I mean, the team has put up. Well, are averaging over 30 points a game. It's early, but still. What do you think about him?
No way. I mean, your seat can't be hot after 2 games, and you don't have the best running
Butler.
And you don't have the best running back in the National Football League. But but the thing we just say about Keith Butler, and we were talking about Butler earlier, and you were talking about how you're looking on TV and you're saying, man, the plan is bad. I mean, the evidence that the staff doesn't have much faith in Keith Butler is the fact that Mike Tomlin took over play calling duties in the game for games last year, for a long stretch of time last year. If that doesn't tell you that your boss does not have confidence in you to call the plays during the game, then
but why keep him though? If all that's true, and I've yet to see a legitimate report that states that Mike Tomlin was calling every single play towards the end of last season. If you don't trust him that much, why wouldn't he have gone the way of Todd Haley and finding work somewhere else?
Well, I think it lends to the point that I don't know if Tomlin is absolutely in charge of making all of those decisions when it comes to staff. I think he probably can give his recommendation, so on and so forth. And, if they decide to move on from the guy or not. I mean, Butler was a Steeler guy. He had been there for years. The Rooneys are pretty loyal to guys we've seen his coaching. And so I think they're giving Butler a shot because Butler waited in the wings for years, being a linebacker coach underneath Dick LeBeau. So I think the organization is being loyal. And I don't know if Tomlin always has to say so in his coordinators. I don't think he's ever had the 100% say so ever, because when he was hired, he had to keep LeBeau and he had to keep other coordinators as well. So I don't think he has the carte blanche like maybe a Belichick has with his organization to fire anybody and really not run up the flagpole.
All right, so let's go to the next one, which is about Keith Butler, and that is Keith Butler will be fired by the end of the season. True or false?
Oh, hell yeah. He out of there. He's out of there. Because here's the thing, right? I mean, you have an ownership group in the Rooneys. One thing that Rooneys want to do as a football team, a couple of things. They want to win championships. We all agree on that. They want to run the football. And they want to play good defense. I mean, you listen to the owners, when he does the interview, the state of the Steelers, what do you talk about all the time? Stopping the run, playing Steeler defense, and running the football. This ain't Steeler defense. This ain't your daddy or your granddaddy or your uncle or your cousins or your sister or your aunt or your grandmama Steeler defense. I don't know what this is. And so I know he's not pleased at the quality of defense. And watching teams put up 40 points on the black and gold at the crib, man, the Chief is rolling over in his grave. And so will Keith Butler in tick, 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 tick weeks. He out of here.
Okay. I'm going to say false because I don't know the answer to this question, but I want you to think to yourself, when was the last time the Steelers fired a coach during the season? Not a head coach, obviously. We know that's not true. But any coach. When was the last time the Steelers fired a coach during the season?
So the true or false is in season or at the end of the season?
In season. He will be fired by the end of the season.
Well, it'll be false. He's not going to get fired in season. He will be fired after the season.
Okay. If it's after the season, then true. If
Yes,
it's
it is
during the
absolutely
season,
true.
if it's during the season, I'm gonna say false, unless if they go down to Tampa Bay and they give up 40 plus again, now we have an issue. Now I would say that yeah, that they might say either. I mean, I'm trying to think of the options that have happened. I mean, some NFL teams have taken away play calling. You have some offensive coordinators, but they're like, he's not going to call plays anymore. I guess they might be able to do that for defense. That would be the only way if they just start giving up massive amounts of points. That would be tough. But I'm gonna go ahead.
You know what they're going to do, Jeff. I mean, they will just make it public. So they will do what they did last year with Tomlin calling a lot of the plays. They will just make it public. And Tomlin will come out and say, I'm taking over this defense and I'm calling the plays. I'm taking over the defense from here on out. That'll be tantamount to a firing. That's about as close as it'll be. But that will be a firing.
Yeah.
If the coach comes out and says he's taking over the defense.
Yeah, I think we agree on that. Okay, enough Keith Butler talk for now. We'll probably get into that later. Antonio Brown missed Monday's meetings. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, said it was for a personal matter. The Steelers were reportedly unaware of the fact that he was missing, so he did not let them know. And Mike Tomlin met with him today. He told the media that he did or he is going to discipline Brown, but he did not say to what extent. Now, the players that spoke to the media after practice today stated that Brown is a part of the game plan. So the fact that would he be suspended is definitely hedging their bets on not suspending him for a game. But here's the true or false statement. The Steelers will suspend Antonio Brown for some or all of the Week 3 game against Tampa Bay. True or false?
False. Look, there's a famous Jay-Z line in the song The Takeover. We don't believe you. You need more people. I don't believe Mike Tomlin at all. I mean, look, he's not disciplining AB. And if he's in the game plan, he'll miss a snap. I mean, they're 0-1-1. What does Mike Tomlin want to do? Get a win. One thing he's not going to do is discipline AB. I mean, they probably all huddled and said, hey, man, when you give your interviews, say I disciplined him. It'll go over well. I think all Mike Tomlin is doing here is managing the media. I mean, that's all he's doing. He trying to put a good face on it. I bet the conversation was more or less like, look, man, just give me a call, dude. We weren't doing anything on Monday anyway. Just give me a call next time. All right, let's go. Let's get prepared to play Tampa. And it was 5 minutes. He didn't do anything. Nothing. And Antonio Brown's personal matter was probably, he had to look in the mirror and do different signs and figure out his celebration for Monday night. So he had to leave the facility and get another Rolls Royce and autograph it or whatever, play some Fortnite, whatever. I don't know. He didn't discipline the guy. No way.
I do think they might have disciplined him financially. They might have taken some of his paycheck or something of that nature, a fine, which they don't have to report. That can be done in-house. They don't need to let the media know.
He bought donuts. He bought cannoli.
Maybe. That would
he bought some donuts.
But I'm going to say false based on the fact that, like you said, the Steelers need to win a flipping game, and they're not going to put their best offensive weapon on the bench for any period of time, not against Tampa Bay, not when you're 0-1-1, not when you need to have points put on the board because you're not sure how many points your defense is going to give up. So I absolutely think that's false. I would be stunned if they said he was going to be sitting for a quarter or for a half, or even if it's a drive. I would be stunned. But I'm not saying it won't happen. You never know. But if we're guessing, we both don't think we both agree that we don't think that's happening. Okay, last one, Lance. This is an interesting one. True or false, Mike Tomlin has lost the locker room.
I'm going to say false. And the reason the reason I'm going to say false, because for me, being a Carnegie Mellon grad, sometimes, I look for measurables, right? I look for ways to quantify things to give me a clear answer. When you talk about lose the locker room, first of all, I think that's somewhat subjective. I don't know how you measure that. I don't know what that looks like. I think that's a popular thing to speculate about. I think it's false. I think, I don't know what people look for when they say lose the locker room. I don't know what that means. I think he's lost this defense, and the defense is absolutely lost. As far as the locker room, I mean, I guess I could gauge it by the comments of the captains, or just even in the bad behavior of Antonio Brown on the sidelines. When you lose the locker room, guys don't get pissed. Guys just take losses and smile. I mean, maybe that's how you gauge it. But no, I don't think he's lost the locker room, but the defense is in shambles.
I'm going to say false. To me, when it's about losing the locker room, it's about the message is not getting through anymore. And I think this was the truth for Bill Cowher at the end of his time coaching, I guess, because he never went back before he retired with Pittsburgh in 2006. And he even said it himself. And he had longed for that one Super Bowl, that one for the thumb, for so many years. He coached for 15 seasons in Pittsburgh. And when he finally got it in 2005, it almost was as if he didn't know what to do. Because
right, I agree.
And so for him, he's openly talked about this, that in a way he was kind of like, I felt like the guys kind of didn't know. It was kind of unknown, and I think that was when he realized he needed to step away, and he just never went back. And the question would be, is Mike Tomlin's message not getting through anymore? We know it used to. We know that the players have always been responsive of him. To me, how they play the next 2 weeks will tell me a lot about how the players respond to his message, because you just got embarrassed in week 1 by tying the Browns. You got even more embarrassed defensively in week 2 by the Chiefs at home. And now you're on the prime time stage 2 weeks in a row. This is typically right in Mike Tomlin's wheelhouse. If Mike Tomlin were a baseball player and they show the chart for the red and the blue, what's hot, what's cold, the cold part would be, on the road, sub 500 team, possibly overlook him. That's his blue. He's cold. He's not very good there. Prime time, backs against the wall, us against the world mentality. Boy, that is bright red. That's his wheelhouse. If he can't get his team turned around in these 2 weeks, that's a problem. That's a big problem. But I'm going to say the false. He has not lost the locker room, not yet. So,
let me chime in real quick, Jeff.
Yeah, sure.
And let me give a shout out, because the live chat is blowing up. I'm listening to you and trying to follow the live chat on my phone. And I want to give a big shout out to Reed Overend. And he made a good point. He said when the players start blaming Tomlin, he's lost it, and that hasn't happened yet. And I agree.
Good point.
You don't see the players, blaming Tomlin publicly. They might not be showing up for meetings, but they're at least not blaming him publicly. I mean, not showing up for a meeting is just one thing.
Yeah. While you have that up there, the live chat, have you any other good comments so far since we're done with the true and false segment before we move on?
It's pretty fast. I mean, a lot of this is going on pretty fast. I mean, everybody seems to agree that Keith Butler should go for sure.
Yeah, he's a scapegoat, man. It's like my brother always said, you can't fire all the players. You got to fire someone else. That's why coaches get fired so much. You can't fire all the players, even if they suck, because you wouldn't have a team. So even though the players, they didn't replace Shazier adequately, you can't fire all the inside linebackers. You're going to have to fire someone else. So, all right, well, let's move ahead. If you see something that catches your fancy, let me know. That they're on the live chat. We appreciate everyone for watching live on YouTube. If you didn't know we had a YouTube channel, we do.
We do.
You should check it out. Yeah, go to YouTube. Just search BTSC for Behind the Steel Curtain, Steelers Radio, and you get this podcast, our post-game podcast, our preview podcast, all right here. So let's talk a little bit about week 3. Let's turn the page. Let's move forward. Let's say singularly focused, as Mike Tomlin would say. I'm not here to paint with a broad brush, but the standard is the standard. That's the name of the show. If I'm trying to break out all the Tomlinisms right now. So what?
Popcorn.
Obviously. All right. So week 3, they go down and they're playing. If Patrick Mahomes is the hottest quarterback in the NFL, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who looks like Conor McGregor in his post-game presser last week, pretty funny stuff. He's probably the second hottest quarterback in the league, man. He's thrown, I want to say, 8 touchdowns in 2 weeks.
Right.
He was the NFC Player of the Week the last 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, they're like, holy geez, what's going on with his offense? I don't even know I got to be honest. Okay, folks that are watching or listening, I have not watched much film of Tampa Bay. Normally, I have already kind of, dove into that. But thanks to Antonio Brown and the increased workload that I've had to deal with at the website because of his fun antics, I have not been able to do that. So I'm going to lean on Lance a lot for the breakdown today. But I will say this. They have some receivers that should scare the Steelers. Like Mike Evans is a different beast. He's big. He's fast. He has tremendous hands. Is a guy I really liked coming out of college. Knew the Steelers weren't going to get him, but I really enjoyed watching his film when he came out of A&M. And then Deshaun Jackson seems like he's kind of found the fountain of youth for at least the deep ball. They hit it on a couple deep balls. He's a deep threat, still can run. Don't even know the name of the running back. Lance, I know you've watched more than that.
Don't worry about the running back. He's not a factor.
Doug Martin is the last running back I remember. I know he's not with them anymore, but he's the last running back I remember.
Yeah, he's not a factor. The running game is no factor with them. And a funny thing, interesting factoid about Deshaun Jackson, his parents are from Pittsburgh. He has Pittsburgh ties, Pittsburgh roots. They're from the Hill District. They both attended Duquesne University. So he has Duquesne, so he has some Pittsburgh ties. I want to say one thing that might be a little bit controversial, because you did say that it was embarrassing that the Steelers tied to the Cleveland Browns, but dare I say, they're not much better than Cleveland at the moment. And Cleveland's defense is way better than the Steelers' defense, because that Steelers defense could not go to New Orleans and hold New Orleans to 21 points for sure. That I do know. So right now, the Steelers have the worst defense in the AFC North.
That is not controversial at all. Anyone that is a realist that is watching these games knows this. Think about last week if the Steelers didn't have a high-powered offense. Just imagine to yourself what that would have looked like.
It would have been terrible. Imagine if that touchdown would have counted and it would have been 28-0.
Yeah.
If that touchdown had counted and it was 28-0, the Boo Birds would have been out. But on
they
this
were
game,
already out, Lance.
They were, yeah. My brother was there. People were booing. He said he sat next to a couple of guys. Guys left in the first quarter when it was 21-0. Guys left and said, "I'm out of here.
Wow.
I'm just done. I'm out of." Well, that's not smart. Anyway, but anyway, looking at this Monday night game, I mean, and typically I look at it on the defensive side of football, so I'm going to stay there. So I just want to read some things on the sheet, some of the notes that I have. Tampa Bay is a passing team. They don't run the football. They are ranked 32nd in the National Football League, averaging 2.7 yards per carry. So they're not a good running team. So all of this is focused on the passing side of football. Fitz Magic has thrown for 820 yards this season. He's average, which is first. He's first in yards per game at 410. His yards per attempt is absolutely crazy. 13.5 yards per attempt. I mean, that's nuts. Yards per game, first. Rating, 152, which is first. That's almost perfect. Jeff said it earlier in the show, 8 touchdown passes, which is second. He's only been sacked twice. The receivers we talked about earlier, Deshaun Jackson, 275 receiving yards, which is number 1 in the National Football League, averaging close to 30 yards a catch. O.J. Howard, the quick, fast tight end from Alabama, averaging 30 yards a catch. You got Mike Evans. They're converting 52.2% of their third downs, which is second in the National Football League. The Steelers, what's the saying? You jump out the frying pan and into the fire. Is that the cliche?
Because I'm terrible. If it is, I've never heard it.
I'm terrible at cliches, listeners. You will learn that as you hear the show. But basically, they're getting no breaks on Monday, and they're on the road, and it's going to be hot. They're getting absolutely no breaks. And we talked about Keith Butler and his plan and his issues, flexing out linebackers and inside linebackers. So they had no answer to when Kansas City went spread. Look for Tampa Bay to spread the Steelers out, really attack the inside linebackers in the slot with O.J. Howard, especially if they keep Williams and Bostic on the field. That's a mismatch the Steelers will not be able to handle. This is a game in which I really think they need Joe Hayden to come back. They also need, I think, to take one of those inside linebackers off the field, be it Bostic or Vince Williams, and supplant that guy with another DB of some sort. Play maybe those 7 DBs that we talked about. Given the fact that Tampa Bay can't run the football, you really try to encourage them to run the football by playing really light, playing a lot of DBs. But I think the biggest thing is they have to have 2 safeties over top with every look that they do, because of the fact that Tampa Bay is going to push the ball downfield vertically and really try to challenge those corners. They got to have 2 corners over top of it, play cover 2, cover 4, 2-man possibly. Anything exotic, any blitzes that they want to do, it has to be backed up with coverage. They cannot play single high in this game or they are going to get roasted. I think somewhat that this challenge is going to be as equally tough as it was for Kansas City. One thing I do believe, though, from a communication perspective and standpoint, I think they're going to be much sharper this week because of how bad they played last week. And one thing about NFL teams, and this is a true test, if you see the communication issues again on Monday night, that's really bad. One thing NFL teams typically do is if they make certain type of mistakes in the prior week, they clean those up immediately. So if they're out there and the communication is bad, so on and so forth, then this defense really has issues. I think this defense is going to be really challenged, from trying to stop that offense. I think offensively, they're going to have to convert more than 3 of 11 third downs like they did against Kansas City, possess the ball, slow the game down, and really limit the possessions that Tampa Bay has. Because the thing that's even more critical with all of this is teams aren't getting pressure on Tampa Bay. Steelers got 1 sack last week by Daniel McCullers. If they don't get any pressure on Tampa Bay, they're going to get carved up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I don't know anything about this team, man.
You're terrible.
But I'll tell you what. I will tell you this. I've always felt this about the Steelers offense. And last season and the year before that, I was just the defense guy. You were I was the offense guy. You were the defense guy. I really just want the Steelers to be a more balanced offense. And I don't care who they're playing. They have the offensive line, in my opinion, that they can get push and that they can open up holes, whether it's for James Conner, Stephen Ridley, or Jalen Samuels. And I feel like that they can throw it on anyone, too, and they can protect with the best of them. So for me, I don't want to see 60-plus passes. That's dictated on the defense and in terms of the Steelers' defense and how they handle that high-powered offense. If they get in a hole again, they're going to have to throw their way back into it. But I want to see a more balanced approach. Lance, you and I texted last week about the plan sucks, and I was like, yeah, abandon it. Get rid of it. It sucks. But at the same time, sometimes the plan has to be better and it has to be a little bit more balanced. It can't be so predictable. I didn't like that. So there you have it. Let's do some predictions here, Lance, for the week 3 game on Monday Night Football. I want to say the Steelers are actually favored in this game. The last spread I saw.
No way.
I'm not.
No way.
Maybe they're getting 2. Maybe they're getting 2.5. Let me look that up. Go ahead and tell me your prediction. I'll look it up.
We can ask on the live chat if are the Steelers favored. There's no way they could be favored after getting hammered like that. Going on a road,
I'm probably wrong. Good. What's your prediction?
Pain.
No, I'm not joking. Hey, I'm not joking. I thought we ran this. We ran this story on the 18th. That was yesterday morning. The Steelers opened as 2.5-point favorites over the Buccaneers in Week 3. Vegas likes the Steelers right now.
For all the listeners on the live chat, get some of that action. Get some of that action. You watch that. You better take those 2.5 points. Steelers are going to lose Monday night. I just don't think this offense, this defense. I don't think from a personnel standpoint and schematically, I don't think they can stop Tampa Bay. And I don't think they are getting and generating enough pressure right now to really put a dent in what Fitzmagic is doing right now. I think it'll be a competitive game. I don't think they're going to score 40 or something like that, but I think they're going to have some success. And I think the Steelers lose this game like 31-28. I just don't think they can hold this team down offensively, and they're on the road. The defense is bad because there's just some things that they can't avoid. When they get spread out, if they keep those linebackers on the field, the inside linebacker guys, they are going to get roasted. They are going to get torched. They cannot run with tight ends. Seam routes will be killing them. So there are some things that unless they want to play some different packages, maybe you play more nickel, you play more dime with different personnel. I really think they have to play this game light. And hopefully Hayden comes back. If Hayden doesn't come back, they're really going to lose. I think if Joe Hayden comes back, that gives them a really good chance to win because you have your best two corners on the outside who could presumably run with Deshaun Jackson and with Mike Evans. But I just don't think this defense, the way Tampa Bay is playing, because they did that to a Philadelphia defense. They lit Philadelphia up. They dominated Philadelphia. And this team just isn't there right now. So I think Tampa Bay is going to win the football game 31-28.
Well, listeners, this is what we've been waiting all year for. It really is. Lance has picked against Pittsburgh. And Lance picks against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh typically wins. I'm just saying. This has happened more often than not. He has picked Pittsburgh the last 2 weeks. It's kind of made my skin crawl a little bit. I got a rash because I'm not used to optimism coming from that side of the camera. But you know what? He's against them, and I'm for him. I'll take the Steelers giving 2.5 on Monday Night Football. The defense is meh, and they're going to give up points, but I think the offense is just starting to click. I think that Antonio Brown will have a big game. I think Ben Roethlisberger will have a big game. I think they score over 30 points again. I'm going to say 38 points, and I think they win 38-35. And you know what? We're exercising some demons in this game, folks. Chris Boswell's going to hit the game winner. 38-35 Steelers win. And they come back to Pittsburgh on week 4 to play the Ravens on Sunday Night Football at home. So suck on that, Lance. I hope I'm right and I hope you're wrong.
Whoa, wow.
This is what, hey, people that have been listening since 2014 or whenever we started this show together, they know that you used to always pick against Pittsburgh. They know that. Now, new listeners don't.
Look, I have no idea how Vegas is making them a 2.5-point favorite. I don't know what they saw.
They know, man. You should know by now. Don't bet against Vegas. They know. Go back and just look at the over-under lines from last week. Just if you're curious.
Maybe Antonio flew to Vegas and said, I got this.
That was on Monday.
Yeah, on Monday. He said, I got this. Vegas said, cool, 2.5. You got this, AB. You got it.
And not only that, if you want to talk, I still think that and someone else said it, I'm looking at our live chat here on my phone. Reed Overhand said Fitzpatrick is the old Fitzpatrick will return. I agree. Wasn't he a Bengal once?
I don't know, man. He's been around everywhere. He's played for every team.
For the Bengals. Once you play for the Bengals, those stripes always come through on your helmet. They always do. I don't care what color it is. Those stripes always come through. So, yeah, I'm going to say that the Steelers 38-35.
You see Keystone Wolf. Wow. Keystone Wolf, 8-14. Wow. 42-15. Whoa.
Man,
Whoa.
what's going on with Pittsburgh's offense that they're only scoring 15 points? That's what I want to know.
Oh, Wolf. Whoa.
Okay, we have some. I did ask if people had some questions, and we did have some. Let's do these rapid fire, okay? Greg asked about news on the punters. Mentioned that earlier in the show. They hadn't signed anyone yet. They still could, but the fact that it's Wednesday going on Thursday and they haven't made a move yet tells me that they're probably going to stick with Jordan Berry at least for this week. Real quick, what's your thoughts on Terrell Edmonds, Lance?
He looked lost. He looked lost out there. I thought he was one of the biggest issues in terms of communication problems. He looked lost.
Okay.
He looked like the game was fast for him, too. He really got abused in the open field on that tackle against Kareem Hunt. The game looked fast, and he looked lost.
Yeah, he's got to I haven't noticed him unless he's making a mistake. So is Ben done after this season?
Ben likes money, so absolutely not.
Yeah, but I could see this drama being him saying, I don't need this. I don't need this anymore. I can see that.
And I can see his wife saying, you better go get that $18 million.
Does he really need it? Did
yes,
you sign
you do.
He does?
Yes, you do. Everybody needs $18 million. Trust me. And she going to say, why don't you go get it?
Now, someone 808 asked, is Keith Butler on the hot seat? We did a whole segment on that, and the answer is resounding yes. It is really, really hot.
I wish we had sound effects because it's baking. It's absolutely sizzling, boy, for sure. We got to go into the WTF, Jeff. We got to go into the WTF.
You want to get joy and pain this week?
Yeah, man, it's been too much pain.
Okay. You have a Go ahead. You have a WTF. Go for it.
Don't tell me you're trying to protect your body if your ass is playing pickup hoops and on a jet ski. Man, Le'Veon, man, don't post no more. Don't post no more, man. These guys frustrate me because there's really not much Le'Veon can do to really change the narrative. But the one thing he can do is make it worse. And when you're on a jet ski and your team is getting their ass whooped and you look fat like you ate 3 In-N-Out burgers or whatchamacallit burgers or Five Guys or whatever your local burger is, all you do is piss people off. Then your fat ass gets on a jet ski. Come on, man. I fell off of a jet ski before. Come on, dude. And you play pickup hoops, somebody break your ankles, and you tear an ACL on a hoop court. Come on, man, that's idiot. WTF. Man, go keep making bad rap songs. Go lift, drink a protein shake, and drop some bad bars. That's better than getting on a jet ski. Yeah, that's terrible. That's my WTF. Le'Veon, man, stop trolling Steeler Nation. Just go home and do whatever it is you do. Hopefully it's not smoke weed and pop positive when you come in during the bye week, because we all know Le'Veon's coming in the bye week to get the 2 weeks, and so he wants the rest of that money. But Le'Veon, WTF, man. Chill.
Yeah, it looks like Eddie Lacy's giving him some nutrition advice. Hey, Le'Veon, hit me up. I'll get you straightened out. There we go. We'll do that.
Shameless plug. One fit dad.
That's right. So anyways, WTF for me is, I don't know. This team is just the WTF for me. I would love to have a week where I'm not writing articles about drama or turmoil or he said, she said, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, this team, you know what? It's like I know people know this sound effect that I'm going to make. You know what this team is? This team is when you talk to somebody, they make this sound. That's what this team is. G-V's, man. But I told you guys, anybody that writes his name on a Rolls Royce is a me dude. I told you guys that. This guy's a me dude. I mean, the workouts, all that stuff is cool, but what does all that say? I'm a me guy. Look at me. Look at me. Now, he's been brilliant in using Twitter to build up his brand, but you can't threaten to punch reporters. You can't not come to meetings. Just focus on football, like Ryan Clark said earlier, man. Focus on football. Try to get some wins, man, and just leave it alone, dog. Yeah, this team is drama, man. And it's like, ugh.
Well, you know what a WTF is, and you brought this up, is with Antonio Brown, it's not, his actions are disturbing enough. But this is a guy that leading up to training camp did this whole Destroy Doubt tour. And I don't know if you saw that, and he was going to like 4 or 5 different cities, typically low income cities. Basically, a lot of similarities between where he grew up in Dade County in Florida and Miami. And he wanted to talk to these kids about, being positive and always trying to lift them up. They're looking at you as a role model now. And what the WTF are you doing? Like, this is the antithesis of what you should be doing. And the sad part is that on SportsCenter, everyone's talking about him when you want to talk about a real role model. If you're talking about an NFL player, the guy is Larry Fitzgerald that no one's talking about. The guy's done it right for
Connor.
Or James Conner. Yeah, if you want to stick to the Steelers, but I'm thinking positionally. It just is frustrating because you're putting yourself out there in that limelight. You want to do it the right way, and when you're talking about the youth of
America,
not gonna get that far. But he does have some influence in how kids handle situations and handle themselves, and he's not leading a very good example. We'll put it that way.
Well, lucky for him, though. Most kids are playing Fortnite, so he should be.
Yeah, playing with Juju.
Yeah.
The 21-year-old that gets on Twitter and actually says something that resembles intelligence. It says, "Hey, Steeler fans, we're all down, but we got this. We're gonna get back in." I'm like, this kid, this 21-year-old, is the one doing this. Meanwhile, the veteran, the best receiver in the world, is out there doing Lord knows what on Monday instead of doing his job. Give me a break.
Well, if he had made the call, I think the guy that would have picked up the phone would have said, "Go to work." So maybe he didn't make the call. Maybe he didn't make that call on Sunday. Hopefully he makes it this week and shows up to work.
Seriously. So, all right, folks. Well, you know what? We did mention last episode that we were going to have some news coming out. There is some news coming up, but it's going to be pushed back till Friday, which kind of sucks. But that means on the post-game show on Monday, the news will already been released. It's all about our new platform. It's where you can listen to all of our podcasts. It'll be great. You'll enjoy it. We will enjoy it. We're still going to be on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube follower, you're fine. And if you're a Blog Talk Radio follower, you'll be pushed over. You're fine. It's just going to give us a little bit more exposure. So, Lance, I thank you for your time as always. Make sure you check us out tomorrow night on the preview show. I'll be on with Brian Anthony Davis. Hopefully the sound will be a little better this time. And then we'll get ready for a weekend of college football. And then Sunday's a full slate. Hey, you get to sit back and watch football waiting for Monday night. So there you have it. Lance, thanks for your time. We'll see you next time. Bye.